This was the site of an Indian village, the Black Hawk tribe, and they came here as summers. And it's on all of the major maps of major Indian villages in the Koshkonong Creek and Koshkonong and Lake Koshkonong area. I'll show you where it is. Koshkonong Creek was a very major area for canoeing in the olden days. Indians come up from the lake. And there are natural springs all over this farm that flow directly into the creek. I have lived here for over 30 years, and my husband has lived here since the 1950s, and his father before him. So we are a third generation, and our children are fourth, and our grandchildren who come here all the time and fish, and they're the fifth generation of this land. I feel very, very close to what happened to the Native Americans when their land was taken from them and they were pushed west of the Mississippi. And the people who lived here were sent away and pushed out by strangers. We are now feeling that we're being pushed out and sent away by strangers. I know of at least 3 people who have now sold their houses and moved away because of the Rockstone power plant.
First it was just a rumor, and then it was like, well, there's going to be a power plant built. And everybody said, what? What's this? Who said that anybody could build a power plant here? We're an agricultural town. I mean, 6 by 6, and we're supposed to be agricultural. We have to get permission to build porches, decks, and somebody's just going to come in and build a power plant on farmland? Oh, I think not. That's not true.
Just seemed that they were kind of secretive in coming in, and by the time the community sort of found out about it, the plans were set and the offers were made, and so the community sort of found out a little late.
You know, for those of us in the town of Christiana, and for those in the village of Rockdale, I think we're feeling like this is being thrown upon us. We didn't get a chance to vote, you know, and anything that we have expressed concern about basically has been pretty much disregarded. So this is a huge local control issue.
This plant was cited under a new law, which we believe was misinterpreted and used inappropriately to cite this plant, which doesn't really fit what was intended by the law.
They started informational meetings by late August of 1998, and the meetings were attended by close to 200 people. And they could not get them into the village. They were all held in Christiana Township, I mean, but the town hall was too small. So they took all of the trucks and everything out of the maintenance building, and they just stuffed it with chairs, and so people could stand around the walls and sit on the chairs, and so we could actually get that many people into the big truck buildings that they have for maintenance and such.
They did not answer us directly. I mean, they sort of waffled around the questions and skated around things.
I think people went initially with the idea that they were going to get information instead of brainwashing. A bad start was that there really weren't people of the management level from Polsky. There was a public relations person that was their front man. Even though we had a chance to voice some opinion, the authority was at the speaker's table, and the authority was with, they're telling us what they were going to do with their maps and charts and things like this. It wasn't to gather input. It wasn't to find out how the area felt about this. It wasn't to indicate that there was any choice involved ultimately.
I mean, we didn't mean to go to the town garage, but so many people came, we had to go to the garage instead of the little town hall. They were so disinterested in our opinions that they have never even sought zoning. And they have just now, a couple of years later, found out that they probably ought to get a driveway permit so that they might be able to drive the trucks in and out of the plant site.
where they sat down at the table with us and started going through the lengthy multitude of paperwork that needs to be done to go through a zoning change like this. And once the Public Service Commission said, you have to go ahead to build. They got up from the table and as good as said, bye, we don't need you, we're going to build, who cares? As you can see when you drive out there now, they're building.
Given that the developer did not ask the village for a zoning change, they were not in compliance with the village zoning ordinances. And so, by not being in compliance, the village requests that prior to them building, that they go through the process of obtaining zoning change, which they did not. And so they found it, I'm sure that Rockdale felt the responsibility to the citizens that if anything should occur, an accident or some tragedy, that they would be responsible because they had not given the proper zoning. I mean, the property was still zoned as primarily agricultural. I think 2 weeks prior to that, there had been a gunshot fired into the plant, and it did damage one of the transistors, and there was about a 600-gallon spill of some fluid. We know that DNR was on top of it and came out and inspected it and made sure that it got cleaned up. But there had been some sabotage, so we still don't know today where that came from, whether it was the opponents or the proponents of the plan. But yes, it was a little fearful. Where the zoning administrator and myself we did contact the sheriff's office and asked them to accompany us when we did the physical posting.
Obviously, I don't want to see it built. You know, what I'm about is, community. This is basically how I make my living. It's, off of pottery. I make everything by hand. I fire with wood. Wood is a sustainable fuel source. It's a renewable energy source. The kiln needs to be fired with, my friends and neighbors. I can't do it by myself. I try to produce a functional product that's affordably priced as opposed to, producing something that, I can maximize my profits from, such as energy, and that's exactly what they're trying to do with this plant, this peaker plant, is maximize the profits. It has nothing to do about, Wisconsin. It all has to do with profits, and profits going to companies either based in Illinois or California.
The people that live in the township get this tax break. The people that live in the village of Rockdale do not, because they're a separate taxing group. So their inclination, of course, is that they get zero benefit from this, and they also get whatever small amount of pollution there is, and noise and traffic and whatever, they get that. So the people in the village of Rockdale have been violently opposed to this plan, whereas most of the farmers have been in favor of it.
And I talked to the town chairman in Watertown Township. He lives at 1/8 of a mile from the power plant there, and he's a dairy farmer like me, so I could relate to him. And he said he saw no problems with the power plant they have there.
I know what it's done recently, and what it's done to this community anyway is it's split the community. It's torn it apart. In a small community, you depend upon your neighbors. That, I think, is the real tragedy over the past year or two.
Well, that issue was raised that, what are your friends going to say about your position and being supportive of it? I said, if my friends are no longer my friends because they're against it and I'm for it, they weren't my friends to start with.
I think there was a feeling that, bring in business for Wisconsin rather than let's look at the impact on the community that's going to have to live with it.
Expect to be rolled over or bulldozed over. I mean, we have a small effort to fight against it, but the powers that be seem to be greasing palms, and it goes all the way up to the governor. So as much as you want to believe in democracy and fight for what you believe in, sometimes I wonder if that's actually possible. So I don't know. It's calls into question a lot of how we believe our country works.
I have to tell you, I'm not surprised. There's been very few sightings of, be it power plants, transmission lines, roads, churches, wind turbines, that doesn't face some measure of resistance, some measure of local opposition. And it's not a new occurrence. Maybe it's a little different now than it used to be. But throughout at least my history in the utility industry, 20 years, and talking to people who've been there a lot longer than I have, there's always been some concerns about siting infrastructure, be it power plants or transmission lines or what have you. And what you try to do is balance out the needs of the local community, the concerns of the local community, with the greater good and the need for electricity. So I guess when I've seen that kind of opposition, not just on that particular project, but on any, it's rather naive not to expect that to occur, at least at some level.
So we're responsible for the gluttonous consumption of electrical energy. If you were responsible for it, then you'd better be ready to be responsible for generating it one way or another.
The Supreme Court of the state of Wisconsin took this case because it is the first of its kind. And anything that happens here then will be precedent throughout the state of Wisconsin.
It's a feeling of such powerlessness. By the time you get through with the governor-appointed PSC, the governor-appointed head of the DNR, and the fact that the Department of Commerce apparently has encouraged industry all the way along the line, that the little guy who owns the land around here, that it doesn't make any difference what we say, and that there is no opportunity for us to have any local control. And local control is not just an issue for Christiana, it's an issue for the whole state.
A good effort, a B effort or a C+ effort isn't worth anything. This is pass, fail.
We've been very happy here. It's a very rich life. So we've had the happiest time of our lives has been living out here.
If you're human, you can't help but empathize. They're real concerns. They're not, I think from the outside, if there's not a proposal near your home, people will dismiss and say, oh, they're just a bunch of NIMBYs, not in my backyard. The situation could change depending on what's being built where.